Let's take a look at a few more examples. So let's see the next trading day. And here in the very beginning of the morning, again, the level worked quite nicely. And again, this is one of those hourly levels that we saw in all the previous examples. Now here you can see that in the pre-market we had a false break that worked quite nicely, a really nice looking limit player that ended up working very well, and the take profit would have been taken. However, the market opened just here at 9 o'clock, so I of course did not take any of these entries. Now there was a really nice signal for falling in the indicators right here, really nice staircase in stochastic right here, and a nice signal for falling in MACD. However, I did not take that trade simply because we were very close to the daily level right here at 130 something points. So we were about 15 points away from a support level on the bottom there. So I did not take it simply because it was too close, and the stop here could not have been short. It would have been a fixed stop of around 20 points. So that signal was not takeable. However, this signal was takeable. Here a really nice wave above the trigger in the MACD, and again a nice staircase in stochastic. So you can see this peak, this one is higher, and this one is higher. So the logic is very simple as always with the indicators. And the entry at the beginning of this candle with quite a short stop of around 6 or 7 points. So take profit was around 18 to 21 points, and it would have been quite easy to make it. Because we had about 25 points room, so there was small reserve, so it was possible to squeeze in the 3-to-1 ratio of the take profit. Now let's see what happens next. And there was no nice impulse, and once again the one more day when we start with a negative trade and losing 6 to 7 points here, unfortunately. And let's see what happens after that. And then there is a nice impulse finally of going up, but we were already stopped out, and we are stopped out by just one minute candle, and then the move works and we would have taken our take profit. This is a very frustrating situation. However, when you have enough experience and you know that the market might be doing things like these, when you're stopped out by just 1 point here or there, and then the move works super rapidly, and you will have a feeling like the market is working against you and the whole world is against you. But it's only the way the market functions, and these kinds of situations will happen, and you should not really pay attention to them too much. Now let's see if we find our next opportunity, and here we have a really tiny false break, and I enter into it with a really short stop of around 3 points or so. So the take profit is obviously super easy to squeeze in. The 3-to-1 ratio, even 4-to-1 and 5-to-1 here would be quite easy to squeeze in because the range allows us to do so. And here the take profit is finally taken, and I've made almost 30 points. So I had I believe a 9-to-1 ratio, and this trade almost a 10-to-1. So that is quite nice. Losing a few points on the first trade and then making around 30 points on the next trade, which is a really nice beginning of the day. And as you can see here, this level, the daily level that we've seen in quite a few examples in the past few lessons, shows up again. And that's the reason why I had my take profit around this location with a reserve of a few points to the level itself. So here we have another signal. If you look at the bars here, then this would be our signal candle. This would be the entry candle with the indicators and some staircase of going down again in stochastic, which looks quite okay, but it's untakeable since this level is too close. Let's see how it plays out later on. And it's not really working, so a good thing that we did not take that signal. Now, this is our next signal candle, and this is our next entry. The beginning of this candle would be an entry. As you can see here, again, each and every time this happens in stochastic, this is a beautiful combination, a beautiful set of peaks, all higher than the one before. In stochastic, the staircase that I'm constantly talking about, and this is something that I'm always looking for in stochastic, and a really nice wave above the trigger in the MACD. So as always, everything is the same, and I hope that it is quite easy to follow and quite easy to use. Now, here, as we enter into climbing prices, we have our stop set out at just around 4 or 5 points, so really small risk, and we have a way to go till this level, so we can easily squeeze in our 3-to-1 ratio or more. Now let's see if this trade worked. There was no impulse, just a small impulse in the very beginning, and then we had quite a few frustrating situations here, quite a few frustrating candles, and finally it moved down, but there was no signal in the opposite direction. It almost gave us a signal in the opposite direction here, but it did not happen. You can see the bars that they are all the same level or smaller, so no signal in the opposite direction, and we are still in business. And finally, we are coming very close to our take profit. And again, there was no signal in the opposite direction just yet. Here, the same situation as with this area right here. There was something almost in stochastic right here. However, the MACD gave us no signal in the opposite direction just yet. And here, this was the place where I left the trade. As you can see here, there was some kind of a wave beyond the trigger, and the stochastic was lower than this peak, and this peak was lower than this peak. So it was not perfect to re-enter into falling, but I just simply closed the trade at the end of this candle, making another, let's check, making another 57. Here's 46, so making another 11 points of profit. So no take profit, quite far away from our take profit, but still is okay. And again, leaving at the weakness of this trend, and the weakness here was quite visible, but it was not possible to re-enter into falling prices here just yet. Just because the MACD went through the trigger, and the general look of it was not that very nice, but it was good enough to leave the trade alone and leave the trade in general. So let's see what happens next. There was quite a nice impulse of going down, and here we can see a really nice signal into falling yet again. However, this wave beyond the trigger, and a really nice wave in stochastic, but it is too close to our support level. Just a few points below here will be our next level, so it's too close to the level. And in general, in this downtrend, this whole piece here is a downtrend, and it is quite late in this downtrend, so I did not take this entry. And let's see if it worked, and we probably would not be stopped out there. And yes, it did work quite nicely, but again, it was too close to this level, and I could not really squeeze in the 3-to-1 ratio of take profit, so I did not take that signal. And now finally we came to this level yet again, and we could try and trade a false break, but since we saw that the price has been spending too much time above the level, we can try now and trade a false break of going up. And let's see if that's something that is going to give us a good result. Now here I enter with a stop order into climbing prices with a, let's check, 134 with about 10 points of a technical stop, and the take profit is around 30 points, the 3-to-1 ratio. And let's see if it works. Now it works quite nicely in the very beginning, steadily, no resistance, but then just as steadily starts going down, yet again down. But this here, I considered leaving this trade around this location with this signal into falling prices in the indicators with stochastic and MACD telling me that the price might be falling, but we had some profit and we entered with a false break of a level, so I decided to keep it, and since the level was close and I had a profit, I decided to check and see what is going to happen. And we did not even come to the level, and we developed another signal into climbing in the indicators, but thankfully we were already into climbing for quite a while, so we did not have to worry about it at all. Now the price is coming down back to the level, and this is a very nervous situation where we can see a really strong limit player here hitting right into the level constantly and trying to test and see if it can break the level, but the level was not broken, and of course we are quite happy to see that the level stood this battle. This was a battle between a buyer and a seller, and the buyer has won, and we are the buyers in this situation, and we were quite happy to see that we are going back into profit. Now let's see what happens next. Then small impulse, but then it's short-lived and the price is coming back to the level, but then bouncing off of that level yet again, going a little bit higher than the previous peak here, developing some kind of a divergence in the MACD, which is quite nice to see, just as a small confirmation of our general situation. And now finally a really nice impulse of going up and higher, and this is a place where I felt like I could relax and enjoy the view. Now let's see what happens next. Now in this situation I had quite a few points on my side, and there was a really interesting position of a limit. It looked like a limit player here, and just in general you could actually mark a level, this one followed by a false break, and then a few confirmations of that level, and plus this one right here, and a really strong move against and a signal in the opposite direction in the indicators. So I simply left the trade in the end here with, let's check, with about 16 points of plus, which still is a good amount of plus, quite far away from our take profit, but this is me introducing one more reason to leave the level trade when you see a really strong limit player, even in the 1 minute chart, and then you see that it's bouncing off of it quite strongly and developing a signal in the indicators. This is a good enough reason to leave your trade and just not risk it. So remember that there must be a visible reason, there must be either a stop or a take profit, or a visible reason either in the indicators or the level coming from out of nowhere and developing and creating a risk out of thin air. So this is a situation where I made the call and I decided to not risk it any further. And therefore I've taken a nice profit, just a few points. I know it's not a huge profit, it's a very short term and really small result. But on some other days, these kinds of trades will give you constantly 60 points, 80 points, 100 points, and so on and so forth. But on these days, these were quite complicated days to trade. And I really wanted to show you these kinds of difficult days so that you see my exact examples, how I behaved in a difficult day and not on an easy day. Because on an easy day, probably you can trade already with money. But on a difficult day, it can be quite difficult. So I want to show you how I behave on a difficult day. Now, then there was a possibility of entering into this signal for falling. However, once again, it is marked as a red circle, meaning that it's a bad signal simply because the level is too close. And the stop level here would have been 10 points. So we need at least 30 points of going down to make our 3-to-1 ratio, and it was not enough, barely not enough even for 3-to-1, and I'm not even talking about some reserve. So let's see what happens further. And here of course we have another beautiful signal for falling in the indicators. However, unfortunately it's also not takeable simply because of how close it is to the level. And here this would be a really nice place to enter into climbing prices with a false break of this level, just like we did here, and made some points. This would be a nice also opportunity for entering into climbing prices. However, as we did it with quite a short stop, we did get stopped out almost right away. And there is no way around it, and unfortunately these things do happen, and so we did get stopped out. But I did try to re-enter into a false break again with a slightly larger stop, and I did get stopped out yet again, and this is where I got stopped out. And then here, even though it looks like quite a late one, however, I did trade. Now this was also could be considered as a false break up, and not down, as this one is a false breakdown and this is a false breakdown that we traded. But this one here could actually be considered a false break up. So we could have traded a false break here, but since I was into climbing with this false break, I could not trade two false breaks at once. So I had to stay with my initial decision and be stopped out. However, as this signal happened, this one right here, I entered into falling prices with an indicator signal, hoping for getting a late price for this false break of going down. And this actually is one of those more complicated situations that you can do. So once again, the price moved down. We tried to trade false break here, another false break, we got stopped out twice, and then the third try, after we got stopped out the second time, we entered simply with the signals in the indicators, a really nice structure of going down the staircase and another signal in the MACD. This one would have been the perfect one, but again, I do not recommend taking these kinds of signals because we could not have predicted that the market would go through the level so easily, and I actually traded myself the false break of this level and got stopped out twice. So that's pretty much, sometimes this happens like this, and nothing is working. So the signal that actually could work, we did not take for a few of our technical reasons, and then two trades that had a good potential actually did not work, and the one that we didn't take worked. That's okay, that happens. There are situations like that, and you will have these kinds of days, and there is no way around them. They are part of this job. Now, and after all, this false break here of going up, actually this whole situation, this level right here was again this level right here, which I predicted in the very beginning to become a mirroring level and to actually have resistance and actually go further down from this level. So this, and we did try to trade it quite a few times and it was unsuccessful. So that is the reason why I tried to trade false break for going up again. And since we did not have really a chance to trade this false break in the way that we traded it quite a few times before in the previous lessons of this strong daily level, I still decided to take this indicator trade since it was from the level, not into the level, because this indicator signal, for example, this one here, would be into the level and too close to the level. However, this one would actually be from the level. So I risked it, I took it, and I thought that maybe finally the daily level will work the way that I expected it to work and becoming the mirroring level and give us a nice impulse of going down. So I've unfortunately made a wrong call. I should have maybe entered with going into falling prices here with this being the false break of this daily level. However, I decided to trade a false break from above of this level. So I made the wrong call here myself. So I'm not perfect, as I've said before. So I did end up entering into falling prices with this indicator trade here with a, let's check, around 17 points of stop, a technical stop in this case. And it did work quite nicely, as I can remember. It did not work right away very fast, but it was slow, nice, steady, going down and giving us a nice impulse. Not a quick one, but a slow and steady, nice downtrend. And let's see where it ended, because here, for example, we have a signal in the opposite direction in the indicator, in the MACD. Stochastic is not giving us very much yet, but the MACD is on the other hand. However, we are not really going even higher than the wave before this super small wave. So I ignored it. I decided to keep it and see if we can make it to our take profit. And the same thing was here, but the MACD went through the trigger, so I ignored it completely. And finally here, we had a lot nicer signal in the opposite direction, and we went higher than the peak before. So that's where I left my indicator trade. And let's check. I left it with around 30 points of plus. So there you have it. And that was the last trade on this day. It was around 6 o'clock in German time, 6 p.m. that I closed this trade. And that was the last trade on this day for me. And I ended the day with quite a nice income. Right, that's it for this lesson. Don't forget about the test. There will be, again, no homework, so I'll see you shortly in the next lesson.